So I was looking at alpha genetics after watching a Reggie video and realized that the same mod creator had a bunch of other mods. The one that caught my eyes was Alpha Bees, and after experimenting with it for some time, I asked myself, can you beat Rimworld with only bees? And the answer is no. Well, maybe. Sorta. But we'll talk about the short list of concessions and issues that came with this challenge. What do I mean when I say only bees? It's not like we can play as bees. Or can we? Meet the first version of the genotype we'll be using. Bonerd. Maybe I shouldn't let the game name things. Not like this first attempt really matters, so let me use this background footage of Levi's unfortunate adventure to explain how bees work. There are 46 species of bee, ranging from perfectly normal to questionable to absolutely insane. There are queens and drones. The difference is how you can make them. As far as I know, queens can only be got by hybridizing lower class bees, while drones can be gotten from breeding them together. You need both a queen and a drone to produce honeycombs, and those honeycombs are what will grant you the loot within. The type of honeycomb you get is randomized between the two species of bees you put into the hive, and so are the bees created through breeding. Breeding and hybridization are two different things, by the way, despite the fact that that makes literally negative sense. Video games. So far this seems like all upside. What makes this challenge absolutely impossible without prior knowledge? Well, here are my rules. I can only eat my starting food and honey food. I can only build from wax, steel and wood. Mostly because those are all needed for the hive, so without them I couldn't play. Now I made steel immune to fire, mostly because my entire hive is gonna be flammable anyway, so I would like my kill box not to catch fire at least. Also, cloth for clothes and carpet is fine, but I can't butcher animals for their wools or leather. Now the first part is the main issue, as I only gave myself the standard 40 starting supplies for 40 colonists. That's too many colonists. 3 colonists. You see, I hadn't considered the two main issues with bees. It takes a standard hive 1 day to produce a comb. A comb gives comb. How the fuck do you pronounce this?
Honeycomb. Honeycomb.
Honeycomb. Okay. Sure. Honeycomb. Fucking hell. You see, I hadn't considered the two main issues with bees. It takes a standard hive 1 day to produce a honeycomb that gives half a meal's worth of food. Okay, so just make a lot of hives. Sure, that's fine, but consider that they don't work at night, so it's more like 2 days to make half a food. So, even more hives. Now the 2 days isn't too bad, unless it rains. Even with spacer tier beehives, even with acclimatized beehives, bees won't produce any honey while it's raining. And it can rain for multiple days. And these fat fucks like to eat when their hunger isn't even that low. But surely it can't always rain, you're fine. Sure, it doesn't rain that much in summer. They still won't do anything though. You need acclimatized bee houses for them to do anything if the temperature goes above 30 or below 0. And those bee houses work much slower. But no biggie, the industrial tier bee houses are acclimatized and work at 100% efficiency. But they cost bee components which you can only get by hybridizing bees the right way and getting lucky because there are 5 options. Also they work way slower than regular bees. So out of all of these issues, which killed my run? Well, none. This was a solo colonist start, so the food didn't even have a chance to have an issue. But when your limbs hurt by existing, you're delicate and fragile, well, you better be immune to disease or you will end up like Levi here. Twice, because I saved her the first time. So as we leave her to slowly expire, let us catch up with our actual protagonists. Their genes have been altered to give them strong immunity and remove never sleep for extra metabolic efficiency. Though I knew food would be an issue with an extra 2 mouths to feed, I hadn't learned any of what I just told you about. Still, Lady Luck was on my side as I rolled one of the best colonists I've ever rolled. Shodan here had a burning passion for intellectual, crafting, shooting, and construction, with the only real downside being their thin skin. While this ordinarily would make her the hero of the story, that title went to the most unlikely out of all colonists, the fucking chef. Yes, the guy who most people completely remove by using nutrient paste is the hero of this story, in more ways than 10. You'll see. Finally, Dave was the resident mountain remover. I wanted to use the canyon from geographical landforms, and that means we gotta have a person whose job it is to undo God's work with extreme prejudice. She was pretty unimportant, all things considering. I wanted to keep the colony to just these three to reduce raid strength and make it a bit more cozy. They still all had the power to bestow the beans on any new recruit. Please excuse the lag in my footage. I know it sucks, but I'm using as many performance mods as I can. If you want me to have a better rating, you can also just send me money through teleportation. Or subscribe like a normal person. Now that little preamble let my guys set up their basic living arrangements in which they will live for the next few seasons. Yeah. You see, I like doing grandiose building projects, and I make them too big and refuse to move people into them until it's all ready. I do not recommend this activity. It does look damn pretty when it's done though. But after just a few days, the issues finally arrive as if they were shipped to me directly from hell. First up, I realized that the AI Mr. Borg Bjorkson made for the pawns to take the combs out of the hives is, well, it's either really dumb or common sense is messing with it. You see, the way they do it is, they go to a beehive, empty it, and then hail the fucking comb, okay, and then haul the comb to the zone or shelf. Then they immediately start processing it into its constituent atoms. Once they're done with that, they repeat this, which means that if the beehives are all done at once, there will be a large uptime where they won't be producing anything because the pawns don't empty them all at once. It also massively increases how many times they have to walk back and forth. Oh yeah, and I forgot to write it. Because they also work during the day, the hives are just not producing. Because if they were able to take it out during the night, then this wouldn't be that much of an issue. But I took out never sleep, so that's great. But add to the previous problems that without electricity, the time it takes for the combs to be processed is also much slower. So they will be emptied even slower. Which means when I ran out of food and had to play as efficiently as possible, I had to manually micro every single harvest, beehive by beehive, every single time. And this went on for quite a few days, with food being very scarce and me only getting by just barely. There were a bunch of stuff, like the hives on the map give you 2 combs each, which is 1 meal, and without those, I would have fucking died. Except I forgot to mention one thing. You may notice that God mode was on this whole time. Now I do this because mods can glitch out very, very, very stupidly. Like, I researched 3 gunpowders and I still can't research gunsmithing. Type of stupid. And unfortunately I had to use a lot of God mode to get by. Because I was constantly turning the rain off because it was raining almost all the time. So after a bit I broke the only honey rule and bought some pemmican, so while that lasted I could create some more backup food. That wasn't the best idea. I would have been better off harvesting berries and eating those. Worst thing is, I don't even know if I needed to do that, because not long after my food situation stabilized, as I harvested enough hives and made enough nests that food was being eaten at the same rate it was being created. So no, I couldn't beat Rimworld with only bees. You can click off now, or we can see how far we can take the bees. One thing I've yet to mention is that the Rimworld of Magic Bees is also installed, as well as Combat Extended. A fairly volatile combination. We have one physically adept colonist in Day, she's also good at melee, a sniper who very quickly became a master sharpshooter in Super Bass, told you she's the main character, and a magically gifted and later chronomancer in Shodan. And yes, giving time powers to the murderous AI will turn out perfectly fine.
An insect.
I chose that class on a whim of what the game gave me first, but it will actually be one of the most important choices I made in this colony. Now, time went by, as it does. I made the blueprints for our eventual blueprints, god damn it. It's just you make blueprints out of blood. That's blood prints there. It took me a long time to set up a wind farm, chiefly because I wanted to stay low tech for the time being. But I just needed the processing time on my bench, so that was abandoned 3 hours in. In another hour, we had our first big raid from the Phytokin quest, which eventually shows up in Vanilla Extended. Phytokins are plant-based species which are very good in some aspects and very flammable in others. If your colony needs a plant specialist, I would always recommend taking it. And if the game pulls a meme by making them incapable of plants, I would recommend employing a firing line. Or just reload the save like a normal person. Seriously, that happened to me twice in a row. I don't need plants, but I could use with a hive slave, so Juniper is getting the beans. We had an infestation which scared the shit out of me, as this bug just ate a shotgun blast as if they were the Doomslayer, but thankfully our pawns were quick enough to evade them, and the sniper's anti-armor attack is insanely good versus mechanoids and insects. The 10 out of 10, Super Bass is the main character, especially because everyone else is having a meltdown in the background. Also, pro tip, sometimes bugs will get up after being down if you don't finish them quickly. To avoid this, you can mark them to be hunted, undraft your colonist, make them hunters, and then tell them to hunt the insects. They will go over to it and execute them very quickly. This is especially good when dealing with a lot of insectoids at once. For some reason, I got a shit ton of ship jumps, so the starvation of components, which usually plagues me like Reggie did peasants in the 14th century, was staved off for the time being. These are the sentences you get from a pretentious writer. So after this, we get the basis of our hive done, but the bees overall have taken a little bit of a backseat, so let's talk about them again. Hybridization works by combining bees which are working in a hive. The upside is that you still get products from those bees. The downside is that it takes a long ass time, and at the start it's very trial and error if you don't know how it works. If you want to figure it out on your own, then skip to this timestamp, but I would not recommend it. The fun of discovery quickly dries up against the extreme heat of trial and error. It starts simple by mixing two native bees. Then you mix the resulting hybrid with either of the others to get amalgams. Then you mix amalgams and hybrids to get 5 separate types. Now the part I messed up is trying to mix these 5 with each other and the other 3 bees I had. But unfortunately, and I think this is actually bad design, the only combination you can add at this point is combining these new 5 with amalgams again. The rest of these can be discovered through making combination sheets in this facility. You will get duplicates, and making them can be rather expensive, but it helps a lot. You can also sell the duplicates for an okay amount, or just write all of them down and then sell all of them. Now, guess what I didn't do for a long time? Combine most of the 5 with the amalgam. So I didn't have access to the bee that makes free plasteel, nor the one that mass produces components for a very long time. Which is pain. Anyway, to join back with our colony, they fucking died. I placed her at the bottom to intercept a raider while Superbass was dealing with 4. The issue wasn't this, it was that I thought the trap alone would be enough to deal with raiders, so I actually moved her out of melee range. She got shot and went to bleed out in 2 hours in a single shot. Combat extended, baby! I constructed a giant tomb with multiple coolers and 2 block wide walls to keep the cold in the case of a solar flare. I was extremely angry at both myself and Combat Extended, and in frustration I checked if my chronocancer, cool. And it turns out, the best thing a chronomancer can do is revive colonists. So with 3 points spent in that, just to make sure that I got it right, and with a Hail Mary, after this, probably too far after this, I created a movement zone for Showdown so she never leaves the base, as she was effectively a phylactery for everyone else. As long as she was alive, so was everyone else. Also, if I make another colony, I'm banning Chronomages. But for this colony, I'm gonna enjoy the hell out of this. Soon enough, the best thing in the world arrives. Carpets! It even looks like honey. Our colonists are enjoying their existence more now too. After a bit of experimentation, I also realized you can put beehives inside buildings for no penalty. This makes me, how you would say, a happy bee. There's a new raid and I thought this wouldn't be too bad. I should stop thinking that because Combat Extended almost gave me an aneurysm on this one. Please excuse the lag, the rain hurts me just as much as it hurts you. Now, why was this battle so insufferable? Grenades remove grenades. Grenades. Grenades remove control from your pawn because they try to run away. But a lot of times they end up just sitting on them anyway. So after these bastards hurt my poor hives, Super Bass ends up with enough wounds to be thrown in a heal vat. Shouldn't decided I didn't have it bad enough though, so she just ended one of our GR10 with generators. How rude. He then also fell ill. After a few seconds of respite, we also got another raid, this time landing on our base. And of course the game wanted to give me another heart attack as I saw this. From that move alone, I knew this guy was a monk. Now you might say, why are you scared of a monk? What could a simple monk do? All of the mages that the enemy gets are level 1. How bad could it be? I don't know. Here, check this fight out between a combat extended war casket, also known as a giant fucking space marine, and a level 1 monk. So yeah, monks are absolutely horrifying and should be dealt with extreme prejudice. Thankfully, the raid was repelled pretty easily. After a few uneventful days, we've also got our grand hall up and going and moved all our hives inside it. This will help greatly as the stockpile is so close to the hives that I no longer have to micro. I also got some research done in the background. Wade has no love for the researching, Shodan is too busy to do it instead. And that research got us some shiny new guns, which I then immediately had to haul inside the base. Because guess what, honey? It's time for your annual cock and insect torture. God, I hate rain. If I do this again, I'm turning it off somehow. It's making the footage so bad. Still, America saved the day. Now, there's been this ancient danger which kept me from expanding sideways properly, and after how strong these guns made me feel, I decided to crack it open with the girls. This thing here is a phalanx. I don't know what it do, but it sure is shit tanky as hell. Thankfully it wasn't too much of an issue as the anti-armor attack of Super Bass constantly stunned the bastard as the turret whittled it down. The Crypto Seed Cascadees, meanwhile, were all useless. But the gold on their corpses were pretty shiny. Now, I invested a bunch of bee components and steel into making a sentry bee, but it can only take combs 10 at a time, which makes it completely useless unless you let stuff pile up, which I don't like doing because I prefer to keep the processing going 24/7. So that's a lot of stuff well spent. Sheesh. I'm sure it's useful if bees aren't the only thing your colony is doing 59 days out of a dream year, but not for my buzzy girls. I also made meat barrels, but I didn't know how to make the things that they take, so that's a bust on them too. Finally got a second mage. I've tried getting Juniper into the fold earlier, but it failed. Twice. So I waited a bit until some of our accidentally too finished temple was more furbished. Either way, she's now a summoner, which is great because I did need someone to be a Roomba, and now I have 4. They also haul thing, but it's mainly for the cleaning. Finally, we got some insectoids outside the place, so I didn't have to haul the turrets inside again. The infested ship chunk wasn't much of a threat, to be honest. I've long given Super Bass a sniper rifle with a flak jacket and helmet to go with it. The advanced component was nice, but the fact I missed a few larvae which grew into big fuckers and had to be dealt with so they didn't kill all my Roombas was very annoying. Let's talk about bees some more. They are very good, but only if you can beeline to the ones you want with prior knowledge. Hybridizing in the dark is about as efficient as, well, hybridizing in the dark. The fuckers don't work unless the hives are, so rain will stop them and so will darkness. Still, I would highly recommend getting chef bees. Colonies rarely need anything more than fine meals and they will provide that in kind. If you get double their hives compared to your colonies, you can probably have an infinite number of them for basically no resources and very little work. You can also use the centrifuge and only extract them 10 at a time for even less time spent on them. Do make sure you have some frozen food meals in the backup just in case it starts raining for 70 years randomly. You can also use swamp bees to make them work while it's raining too. While we were talking, I also created an extra breeding and hybridizing chamber with all the storage for our bee boys that they could ever need. How we're storing bees on shelves, do not question. With an even extra chamber later added where the mass production of more important goods would be neatly organized. Starting with the bee component bees. Unfortunately, the mechanoids have something to say about us keeping their bee-hanoid comrades trapped inside, despite the fact we made them in the first place and they're free to go outside. Nevertheless, the military swarm didn't seem very threatening, but you might notice a bit of an issue. Our upper row of turrets stopped firing very quickly because your pawns don't think it's a priority to refuel them. Some of them also have EMP shells, which further disable the ones that could fire. Thank Randy, I made a helmet and flak vest, or super vest would have fallen way faster. Still, she got knackered back to sleep with 3 infections to boot. Thankfully, I have enough glitter medicine to make sure she's alright, even if I had to micro. I wish you could designate higher tier medicine for infections than to wounds, so I didn't have to get annoyed with this micro every single time I play. Either way, priority 1 was to rebuild the turrets and make sure that them things are armed this time. A caravan comes and I buy a bionic leg, just in case. I'm surprised no one has lost a body part yet, to be honest, but it's combat extended, so having spares is always welcome. Another raid comes. I know this has been a highlight reel of them for the second half of the video, but with how laggy the footage is and with how most of the colony is just making honey or standing still and researching, it's hard to talk about anything else. I had Superbass snort some chocolate to keep her mood high and then decided to use my brain and turn the rain off for the extra frames. I can't believe I haven't thought of this before. I've let the rain exist for a while now because it hasn't been an extinction level event since 8 hours ago. But maybe I shouldn't have bothered because the radar had so many fleeing from gunfire symbols you could sing the Titanic with it. Still, I'll take the extra medicine. Cheers. And this girl here called Axe isn't too shabby either. She has a nice splattering of strengths and passions as well as the hard worker trait. Plus I could give her a new set of spells. For now she will only be a honey slave. Well, not now, after we recruit her. Well, we can't recruit her yet, she's dead. Give Showdown a minute. Alright, there we go. Once converted, she also got the magic beans. I reformed the colony to add the underground trade and shift around a bunch of unimportant stuff. Not that important, all things considering. Anyway, Juniper got her head gnawed off by a warg. I don't know why that thing was there, but at this point my colonists are using Showdown like a crutch. Time can mend all wounds, even the lack of a head. Another ship arrived shortly after along with a caravan. They sorted each other out, with a little help from my friend. Much more concerningly, I didn't learn from that earlier case of no ammo-itis, and this bunch of tribals absolutely embarrassed me. And here let me give you a tip. Make a raid zone. Effectively an allowed area into which you can push all your non-combat colonists into so they don't get caught by the enemy or by friendly fire because they decided that hauling things from your quarry on the other side of the map was the best course of action ATM. Juniper took a lot of damage because I didn't notice that not all of the tribals were chasing Superbass and sent her out to refuel the turrets. Thankfully, despite never giving Day any combat style, she was still a strong enough melee lass to take care of the final guy needed to send the bastards packing. Juniper still died though, so that's another crutch to add to the pile. It's getting rather large in it. From this point on, I finally started micromanaging my turret's ammo. It only took what? 2 deaths? I finally looked up the info I told you at the start about amalgam bees, so we have plasteel being mass produced now, and to be honest, I feel like the colony has peaked. It may not look like that to you, because you're effectively been hearing the story of how much I suck at this game, but at this point we have infinite resources, we just have to wait for them to arrive. I also caved and commissioned a large murder corridor be built. Not the best one I've made, but it'll do peg. The next siege was dealt with by Superbass and her army of elemental bastards. She can summon them because she's the Void Seeker. The role needed to make people mages. I don't know why she has access to it, but hey, I won't complain. Just plop that bad boy in a siege and it will injure or kill a bunch of them, maybe even enough to send them packing. But it seems that none of that was necessary because I got the Shamoon book from this merchant here and I linked Axe to be a mage. If you didn't know, shamans are by far the strongest combat mage, and if you think otherwise, then you haven't used spirit wolves before. Here's a taste of a low-level Spirit Wolf Shaman on the pigs that'll do. Notice how they broke up the siege without any of my colonists even approaching them, severely damaged multiple heavily armored enemies, caused a fuck ton of friendly fire which killed and severely injured enemies, and the wolves didn't even die, they simply despawned from that duration not being upgraded. Now imagine if I can cast that twice per attack, or even more if I had more shamans or a magic battery. Shamans are so incredibly broken that only bright mages can approach them, and only because teleporting anywhere on the map is pretty fucking borked as well. Granted, chrono mages are really fucking good, apparently too, but I mean, you don't need revives if you're not an idiot and don't get your colonist day on the reg. On the regular. Anyway, the pigs got mopped up without doing anything. I also have the ability to remove physical adept from Day and turn her into a shaman too. So, I think with this infestation that spawned in my temple, again, I think it's time to say goodbye to our bee girls. They are ready to go on without me. Unless you guys want me to continue this colony to some type of end goal. But I think it's better we start over. If you made it this far and put the term Mega Beezord into your comment, I will use your name in the next colony I make. I hope you enjoyed the adventures of our phylactery, mental break, starvation, and way too much rain having bee girls. Until next time, subscribe and stay tuned for more.